What's going on, everybody? It's Andy here and welcome to a slightly different video today. It's not a review, it's not a preview. We are looking at blank game weeks. For those of you that have been following FPL for kind of last few weeks or even the entire season, you know that these game weeks are coming. They're game weeks where teams don't play and you need to start planning for them. So the FA Cup fixtures and results have kind of come in over the weekend. We're still waiting for one or two more to come in. But we pretty much know the outlay of what's now happening in Game Week 31 and beyond. So this video is aiming to give you the info of what's happening, some things to look out for kind of fixture-wise, player-wise, who maybe to look at bringing in, maybe who not to look at bringing in. Not looking to tell you what to do necessarily. Everyone's got their own team. People have got different chips left and things like that. But I will go through at the end what my team is and kind of what my thoughts are. So let's just jump straight into it. And we'll start off with kind of what are blanks, who's blanking and who's not. So I have to put a small caveat in this video before I let you watch the rest. Basically, I decided to be clever and record this video as Spurs were playing because I knew that it didn't matter what Man City did on Monday because their Game Week 31 fixture was against Brighton. So whether they go through in the FA Cup or not, they'll miss out in Game Week 31. But I was thinking that Spurs would beat Rochdale, and therefore everything in this video is true. Well, they haven't. Rochdale have equalised in the 93rd minute, which means it will now go to a replay. So, here's what's going to happen. If Spurs go on to win that replay, which should be before Game Week 31, then they'll still blank in Game Week 31. So, everything will still apply in this video. But, if Rochdale go to Wembley, upset the odds and beat Spurs, then Spurs will not blank in Game Week 31, which makes them a much more important team because they got some nice fixtures coming up, plus then they would have a game in Game Week 31, and it would also mean that Newcastle have a game in Game Week 31 as well. So keep an eye on that. I'm still going to upload this video because one, I think Spurs will win, in which case nothing changes, and two, there's still a lot of things to go over. There's all the other teams that will blank and not blank and all the players to consider and things to consider when planning, etc. So I still want to put this video up, but I have to add that caveat in. That was me trying to be clever and getting the video done before that game was finished because it took quite a while to record. So I still want to put it up, but just remember, if Spurs win in the replay, nothing changes from this video. If Spurs don't win in the replay, then them and Newcastle will not blank in Game Week 31. So what are blank game weeks? Most of you already know if you've been watching my videos, watching my streams and stuff, or if you're just generally someone who's well into FPL, you'll know exactly what a blank game week is. But I just want to go through it really quickly for those that maybe don't. We've actually already had one this season. Spurs and West Ham had a blank game week earlier, which is why they then had a double game week. So essentially a blank game week is a game week where teams don't play for a variety of reasons. Sometimes games just get called off, like in bad weather conditions. Sometimes they'll get moved. Or in this case, it's because teams are playing in the FA Cup. So when they play in those fixtures, they don't play their Premier League games. And so instead, they have a blank game week. So any players you have from those teams will score 0 points. So for example, Arsenal aren't going to play in Game Week 31. So if you've got Aubameyang, Ramsey, Wilshere, no matter whether they're injured or not, they're not going to score you any points. They'll just sit in your team, score 0, and that'll be the end of it. And obviously then future double game weeks come. So basically any team that has a blank game week should then have a double game week later on, which is a game week where they play 2 games. So in Game Week 34, for example, some teams will play twice. So your players have double the chance to score points, essentially, as long as they play in both of those games. But we'll worry about that when we get towards Game Week 34. So now we get on to the more interesting stuff, kind of who is and isn't blanking and which players you need to look out for. There's going to be quite a bit of text in this video, but on the screen are basically the 12 teams that won't feature in Game Week 31. Now, depending on when you're watching this video, not all the results of the FA Cup are confirmed yet. For example, Swansea have to play a replay, but because they're playing Southampton, and Southampton are definitely through after beating West Brom, we know that that fixture won't happen in Game Week 31 because the fixtures aren't rearranged for who's left over to play. So if the team you're facing goes through in the FA Cup, you just don't play them in that week. So there's lots of big teams here that we need to look out for. It's kind of Arsenal, Leicester, Chelsea, Spurs. Like most of us will have Harry Kane, a lot of us will have Alonso. Even from teams like Burnley, there's people like Pope and me. So if you've got them in your team, they're not going to play in Game Week 31. Now that doesn't mean that you have to get rid of all of them. Obviously, you can only play 11 in a single game week because you've got 4 bench players. And even so, you might not even need a full 11. We'll come on to that later on. And obviously, you've still got Game Week 28, 29 and 30 to make transfers, as well as before you get into 31. So all is not lost. If you've got loads of players from these teams, don't panic. We'll come on to the ones who aren't blanking and what their fixtures look like and what you should look out for in a sec. But these are the teams who's blanking, and then we're going to go on to the ones who aren't blanking right now. So this is arguably the most important thing for Game Week 31. These are the teams that will play. So again, if you've got players from these teams, they'll play in Game Week 31, they'll score points, unlike the teams we just saw who aren't going to play at all. So you've got 8 teams: Everton, Watford, Stoke, Liverpool, Bournemouth, West Brom, Huddersfield, Crystal Palace. Now straight away, you're probably looking at some of those teams and thinking, why would I want players from them? Good question, we'll come on to that soon. I guess the standout really are Liverpool. Most of us have probably got 1 or 2 players from Liverpool, Salah especially, so we might want to look at maxing out on them. Everton are pretty good, they've got nice fixtures, and Bournemouth too have got some okay fixtures around it. But again, we'll come on to that soon. I just want to get this part out of the way where we kind of go through the basics of who is and isn't blanking before we start looking at things like fixtures and kind of what players you should bring in. So these are some things to remember when you're planning for Game Week 31 blanks. 11 players isn't a must, and I have to tie this in with that everyone is in the same boat. So everyone's got access to the same players as you have. Do you know what I mean? If Kane is missing out, if Aubameyang's missing out, if Sanchez is missing out, Jones, etc., obviously none of your rivals can get those players. So they're only getting the players from the same pool, or the limited pool that you can. So, for example, Liverpool have probably got not only the best fixture, but they're also the best team who are playing in Game Week 31. So if you've already got Salah, maybe Firmino, and then you're going to get one other Liverpool player, then you've already got 3 of the best kind of 9, 10, 11 that you're going to play anyway. And because there's so many players that you probably don't really want long term, you don't necessarily have to load your team up with 11. Now there's different strategies with chips you can use. I don't want to get into that too much in this video because it's already going to be long enough as it is. But you could load up on Game Week 31 players, whether you're going to want them long term or not, and then use a wild card straight away afterwards in Game Week 32. That will then set you up for the double game weeks that are going to come. Or if you don't have those chips, or you need to worry about a more long-term strategy, then you might consider only going into the blank game with only 8, 9, 10, 11 players. As long as you've got the best ones, or what you consider the best ones, you're probably not going to lose out too many points by not having kind of Shaqiri, a Huddersfield defender, or maybe a Crystal Palace midfielder, someone like that. Now, they could go on and score loads of points, I'll be eating my words, but chances are that's not going to happen. So you don't need to worry about necessarily having 11 players. It's obviously great if you can, if that works into your plan, but don't panic about it too much. Everyone is in the same boat. And that kind of ties in with don't load up on dud players. So if there's players you're not going to want to hold afterwards and you don't have a good way to get rid of them, it's not always worth taking out the big hitters that aren't playing that week. And we're going to come on to their fixtures because there's some teams with good fixtures for the next kind of 3 but don't have a game in 31. So we also have to take into account that we don't want to spend the next kind of 3 weeks only getting in blank game week players and missing out on tons of points for the next kind of 3 weeks. So it's worth not really getting in all the dud players, I would say. Free hit may be better in Game Week 35. Again, don't want to get onto this too much, but a lot of people were considering Game Week 31 or Game Week 35. And the way the fixtures have fallen, a lot of us already have kind of 4, 5, 6 players maybe who are going to play in 31. So we're going to use our transfers, maybe take a hit or 2 to get kind of 9, 10, 11 players, and then use the free hit in Game Week 35. Now, again, it depends what chips you got left, but one of the reasons to do that is because there's likely to be some blanks from some big teams in Game Week 35. But those teams are also going to have a double game week. So the kind of strategy there is, or the kind of the consensus on strategy is that you wildcard in all the good players that you want. In Game Week 35, when some of them don't play, you use your free hit to get in other big hitters from teams you maybe don't have. And obviously then you get your team back in 36. So that's worth considering. Again, you're all going to have to take into account your own teams. But that's kind of the way I'm looking at it right now. And then a blank game week is only... a hit in a blank game week is only worth a -2. Now, people love or hate this way of thinking about it. I used this to my advantage last year and kind of rolled with it. So basically, a player is usually a -4. If I want to swap this week Sanchez to Eriksen, I don't have a free transfer. I can do it for a -4. So I'm saying that Eriksen either this week or over the course of the next 3 to 4 weeks is going to outscore Sanchez by 4 points. But in a blank game week, if you don't want the player that you're taking out long term, then I don't know. As an example, okay. So bad example because you're going to want Harry Kane, but let's say Harry Kane, you don't want him after game week 31, but you don't have a free transfer to take him out. So usually it costs you -4, but if he's not playing in game week 31, he's going to score 0 points regardless. So the thinking is by bringing in someone that is going to play, they're going to at least score 2 points. Right, so if you've spent a 4-point hit, they score 2 points. They've already clawed back 2 of your points. They've only got 2 more to make up. So obviously you're then betting that the player you bring in either gets a clean sheet, maybe a goal or assist or 2 or 3 or whatever, and that kind of makes the points back in that game week. Now, that gets a bit different if you're then going to want that player back in. That's why I said Harry Kane was a bad example, because you will want him back, I'm sure. Then it's not costing you 2 points, it's costing you multiple transfers. But last year, for example, I took 16 points worth of hits. So I took 4 extra transfers from what I could already make. I bought in players like Josh King, who scored a hat-trick and then went on to do really well for the rest of the season. Sure, got a bit lucky there. I wasn't expecting to get a hat-trick, but it worked out. Bought in Lukaku, who I wanted longer term then. So in my head, I told myself it was only costing me 2 points per transfer. Now, some people will disagree with that. They'll still say it's 4 points a time. But if you're bringing someone in to replace someone that's not playing, you should hope, unless there's yellow cards, send-ins off, missed penalties and things like that, they're going to score you at least 2 points. And you're obviously betting that they do more. So I will definitely be open to hits in Game Week 31. While I'm not bothered about playing 8, 9, 10 players, I'll probably look to play the full 11 if I can. And I'll use my points only cost 2 hit strategy to full effect in that case. Next up, I want to take a quick look at the teams that are blanking in Game Week 31, but their upcoming fixtures. So again, you'll have to look at your team, what chips you've got left, as to whether you need to think longer term. But I'm probably going to wildcard in Game Week 32 or 33. So I'm really only looking at the next 3 sets of fixtures before the blank to see if there's any kind of teams there that I might want who've got good fixtures. So just going to take a couple of examples here. Obviously, you can go through each team and decide what players you want, what players you don't have or you do have that you might want to keep a bit longer. But for me, for example, so Spurs have got Crystal Palace away, Huddersfield at home and Bournemouth away. That's quite a good set of fixtures. Obviously, I've already got Harry Kane. But I'm also looking at bringing a Spurs midfielder, maybe Ali or Ericsson. I quite like Son, but I don't think he's necessarily first choice now. He seems to be playing in kind of cup games and stuff, so maybe Lamella might be coming in ahead of him in Premier League games. But I'd like the look of someone like Ericsson. So even though he's going to blank in Game Week 31, I still think there's enough points there in the next 3 games where I might still want to get him in. Hopefully he gets me a load of points. Hopefully, if he could get an average of 6, 7, 8 points over those games, he's going to get me 18 to 20 points over the next 3 game weeks. And then because I've gotten rid of, say, a player like Alexis Sanchez, who maybe won't do so well, I've earned my points to then maybe take him out for a hit later if I need to. Another one that I'd look at for sure is Leicester. So they got Stoke at home, Bournemouth at home and West Brom away. Again, 3 nice fixtures, 2 good home fixtures. West Brom away, who, if you've been following kind of football news, they've obviously had some troubles while they were away. They've just got knocked out of the FA Cup. So they're not looking in a good place right now. So I'm looking at maybe Mahrez, or because he's back in the side now, or Vardy up front if I want another striker. So I'm looking at Leicester as well. And Arsenal is maybe a bit shorter term, because you're probably not going to want to bring those players in for Man City at home. But then they have Brighton away and Watford at home. So I'd be looking there to maybe jump on Ramsey if he's back fit. Mkhitaryan, Aubameyang, players like that who've actually got some pretty good fixtures. Now, there's also time to look at teams like Chelsea who've got Man United away and Man City away before a Palace at home game. And they've got Champions League around that as well. And then a blank. So I'm actually looking at taking out Alonso, for example, and maybe getting Van Dijk in, who's going to play in Game Week 31, before I'd start taking out players from kind of Spurs and Arsenal and Leicester, because they got nicer fixtures. Other than that, fixtures are kind of mixed. Arsenal, Leicester, and even Burnley, if you've got players like Pope or me, you might want to keep them for now before you take them out. But it's definitely worth looking at. I wouldn't take out a player just because they're blanking in 4 game weeks' time. And I definitely wouldn't not bring someone in. Like I say, if you can get someone in with good fixtures that you think is going to get you some points, then maybe you can either take them out later or even spend some of those points to use a hit to get rid of them. So keep an eye on these fixtures, study them for your team, and who you think you might want to bring in or take out early. Obviously, if you've got a player that's got really bad upcoming fixtures and they're not going to play in 31, you might want to prioritise taking them out first. So these are the fixtures for the teams that aren't going to blank in Game Week 31. As you can see, I've got an extra column here because they're going to play in 31, as well as their upcoming fixtures. Now, the reason we need to look at these are, you don't necessarily want to bring in someone who's got a tough run of fixtures just because they've got a Game Week 31 fixture. Now, that will depend on why you're bringing them in. So, to give you a good example, Crystal Palace have got Spurs at home, Man United at home, Chelsea away. There's no one in that Spurs team. There's Milivojevic, who keeps getting penalties, we know, but is he going to get many against those top 6 teams? Surely not. At least I hope not. So you probably don't want to play him in those 3 fixtures, but you might want to get him in for Game Week 31. So either you could leave that until Game Week 31 to get him, Or maybe if you need to save some money in your midfield to bring in another transfer that you want to do, maybe he could be your bench fodder option that you don't play now, but you play him in Game Week 31. So you've got to look at these fixtures when bringing the players in. And obviously you've got to look at player form and stuff and how well they're doing, etc. The team that stands out here by a mile is Liverpool. Again, not only do they have one of the best fixtures in Game Week 31, they're also the best team. And while they have Man United away the week before the blank, which isn't great, they have West Ham and Newcastle at home, which could pay dividends to anyone that's got Liverpool players in their team. So I've already got Salah and Firmino. I'm definitely looking at getting a third in this week to make use of all those fixtures plus Game Week 31. So take a look at these. Some of them are mixed. So Bournemouth, for example, have a nice Game Week 31 fixture against West Brom, a nice next fixture against Newcastle, and then it's Leicester away, which isn't great, and Spurs at home, which also isn't great. So I've got Francis, for example, in their defence. I'm not really expecting many returns kind of in Game Week 29 or 30, but obviously I'm not going to get rid of him because he does play in Game Week 31. Now, there will be some players that you have, which I come onto my team later, but you might have players who, even though they've got a Game Week 31, you still might want to get rid of them, and that's absolutely fine. Just take a look at this, look at their form, what fixtures do they have, how good are they, like Everton's are pretty good as well, and do they have a good Game Week 31, and kind of use that to decide when you want to bring in those players. So I'm going to talk about players to consider now, and kind of give you like a tiering system, and that'll show you when you should consider bringing them in. So this is perhaps why a lot of you are tuned into this video, to find out which players you should be considering for Game Week 31, based on kind of their fixtures and how kind of informed they are. So I've gone for a tiered approach. I'm sure I've missed some players here. This list isn't exhaustive. There's other players from these teams that you could consider. But I've just put them on the list now because they're ones that I'm looking at. So I've gone for a tiered approach, tier 1, tier 2, and tier 3. The kind of, it's not completely like mathematical thing, but the kind of thinking behind it is that tier 1 players are ones that I wouldn't mind getting in straight away, because either they're in good form, they're just good players, or they've got nice fixtures. Tier 2 have kind of one step down, so they've maybe got mixed fixtures, or I'm not quite sure about them just yet. And then tier 3 are players that, sure, you can consider them for Game Week 31, but I wouldn't really want to be looking at playing them too often, if at all, before Game Week 31. So just to kind of quickly go through them, Liverpool, top of the list. They could have almost been in tier 1 on their own. I've said it a few times in this video already. They've got the best fixtures coming up. Even though they've got a Man United away fixtures, they've got 3 really nice home fixtures and a good fixture in Game Week 31. And they're one of the best teams in the league. And they've got players like Salah that are just doing bits, as the kids say right now. So you've got to look at, I haven't even listed their players out because there's so many. So you've got to look at attackers, Salah, Firmino, Mane, and then you probably don't want any of their other midfielders, but you'd be looking at defenders then. Van Dijk I'm looking at for goal threat. You've got Robertson, who looks nailed now, in there for clean sheets, but also potential attacking returns at a cheaper price. Personally, I prefer Van Dijk because he just looks good for a goal in every game. But if you want to save a bit of money, then Robertson. Or if you need a goalkeeper, you can look at Karius. He looks to have nailed down that place for now, so you might want to look there. And then Everton, as I said before, they got some okay fixtures coming up. A few too many away games for my liking, but I'd still consider the likes of Sigurdsson and Walcott right now. And then Shaqiri. Now, Stoke's fixtures aren't the best, to be honest. They've got Leicester away and Southampton away. I'm not sure about those 2 away fixtures. Then Man City at home. Their Game Week 31 fixture's okay against Everton. But Shaqiri's in pretty good form right now, so I wouldn't mind bringing him in. He could possibly drop to tier 2, so I don't think I'm going to bring him in just yet. But he's in good form right now, so he has to be on the list. And then Wilson, I think, as Bournemouth go, he'd be the one that I'd be okay with bringing in right now. They've got Newcastle at home, which is nice. And then Leicester away and Spurs at home, like I said before. And then West Brom at home, which is a nice fixture. But yeah, I think Wilson for Bournemouth is probably the one that I'd be looking at. I've got Ibe and Francis, for example. I don't really want to play them. Ibe could lose his place. He's getting reduced minutes right now, which is why he's towards the back end of the tier 3 list. And you've got Daniels, who I've got in tier 2, mostly because I don't see too many clean sheets in those middle 2 fixtures for Bournemouth. But either side, Newcastle and West Brom are nice. So he's in tier 2. Hegazi, again, is in there mostly because of the fixtures, but I'm not too sure about bringing in West Brom players right now. Pardew looks in a bit of trouble. Like I said, they've just gone out the FA Cup. They've had some troubles in their warm weather training camp and stuff with 4 players. I don't know if they got arrested, but they certainly got in trouble with the club and they're investigating. So we'll see what goes on there. Deulofeu, again, Watford have got some okay fixtures plus a game in Game Week 31. So I'd look at a player from there, but I'm not too convinced by Deulofeu, so he's in tier 2. could have argued been tier 3 because he does blow hot and cold. Plays well some games, others not. It doesn't always translate into points. And then lastly in the tier 2 is Nias. So he's a nice enabler. He looks to have that forward position in Everton as his right now. I don't want to go as far as saying nailed because anything could happen with him. But it sounds like until they hit the 40-point mark, when Big Sam considers them safe in the Premier League, he's not going to play his new signing Tosin. So Nias looks pretty good, especially for the price. He could be a good enabler elsewhere. So even if you don't want to play him over the next few, you might bring him in to enable another transfer. And then tier 3, like I said, they're the kind of the players that, yes, they got a Game Week 31 fixture. They've done okay for their teams previously, but I wouldn't personally want to be playing them too often before that. So Milivojevic, like I said, at Crystal Palace, they got some pretty awful fixtures, but an okay one in Game Week 31. Francis and Ibach, I've just said, not too sure about them. Stanislas is a bit injury prone, so I wouldn't want to be bringing him in advance either. And then Moy, Schindler and Zanka, kind of Huddersfield options. But Huddersfield, 2 away games, West Brom and Spurs, not great. Swansea at home, Crystal Palace is at home, that's okay. But that's why they're in the tier 3 list, because you want to wait a couple of weeks before bringing them in. Obviously, Moy's injured right now, but hopefully he'll be back. So they're players to consider. Let me know in the comments below, who have I missed? I'm sure I've missed someone super obvious who we should be looking at bringing in. Or is there any players in there that you'd move tiers, maybe up to tier 1 or right down to tier 3? Let me know in the comments below. So I just wanted to finish off taking you through a quick kind of look at what my situation is right now. The players beautifully circled in red are ones that are playing for teams that aren't going to blank in Game Week 31. As you can see, I've got players like Crouch who don't really have a first team place nailed down, are a little bit injured right now maybe. So he's no good. So I'd say I've got maybe 5. And even Ibe, his minutes are being reduced, and he could miss out the game here or there because of King and Stanislas being back. So I'm a bit worried about him. Obviously, Salah and Firmino are pretty good. Francis should play, even though I don't necessarily want to play him too often before Game Week 31. He should remain in the first 11, as will Pickford again, not getting me many points, but I just can't transfer out a goalkeeper right now. I need to keep him, especially as he's got that fixture in Game Week 31. So I got 2 free transfers. I'm probably going to look this week at taking out Sanchez and Alonso, which will give me a lot of money, Lingard and maybe Crouch, and bringing in. I really want a Spurs midfielder. I've put down there on the screen because they got really nice fixtures, even though they don't play in Game Week 31. So I really want Eriksen. I definitely want 3 Liverpool. I don't think I'm going to go the Manny route. I don't think I'm going to go for 3 attackers. I want to go for Van Dijk. Robertson's an option, but I just think Van Dijk's got goals in him. So I might pay the premium for that. And then I'll look towards maybe Vardy because there's less of good fixtures. But if I want to load up for a Game Week 31 player now, then I might go for Wilson instead. So he's definitely an option. And I would just say start planning now. Look how many players you've got who are going to play in Game Week 31, or if you think, or at least right now it looks like they'll play. How many you want, who you don't want that you... who you don't have that you want. So, for example, I might even go for 2 Everton midfielders by Game Week 31, Walcott and Sigurdsson, but I probably won't get both straight away. So, I'd be happy to get in 1 now. I'm not sure about 2, because obviously I don't want to get rid of Salah and Sterling or anyone like that. But I might, towards Game Week 31, look at bringing in an extra player. So, take a look at who you want now, who you want later, and who you don't want at all, and just start making your plans now, because there's only a few game weeks left before Game Week 31. So, free transfers are at a premium. So that's it for today's video. I hope you enjoyed it. Hopefully it gave you some insight and value into blank game weeks. Let me know, as always, your thoughts below. What are your current plans for the blank game weeks? What did you get out of this video? What players are you considering? Etc, etc. Always happy to read your comments. I'll try and get back to as many as possible, as always. If you enjoyed the video, please give it a like. Always appreciated. Subscribe if you're new around here. There'll be more videos to come, more previews, reviews, etc. As well as live streams. So I'm going to stream tonight as I'm recording this video. It's on a Sunday, so I'm going to stream tonight if you happen to see this before that happens. Otherwise, there'll be another stream probably on Thursday before the game week starts, and then the usual content after that. So going to leave it there. This has been a long one, but hopefully it was worth it. Like, comment, share, subscribe, all that good stuff. Follow me on Twitter and the 85WSM, and I'll catch you next time. Cheers all.